We're back with the recording. So as I was saying, today we had some special session of Hublogistico live session for the summer. Northern hemisphere summer is in the US, it's here in Europe, in Latin America, not that much. But what we are doing here, we're discussing open topics. We are also seeing huge industry players, whether in traceability, blockchain technology, business intelligence. Now we are focused on the 3PL part of the service for logistics. And we are gladly to have Mario Paganini, VP of Marketing of Store, huge 3PL. He's going to talk more about the company in a couple of minutes. And we are happy to have you here. We'll be starting. I'll be hosting this session. So I'll be, as I was speaking, I'm onboarding new people that will be joining. But yeah, just 2 more seconds to talk about the value proposition for Hublogistico, which is the hosting. I'm here on behalf of the hub here. Without information, you're not, you're just a person with an opinion. That's one of our motto. That's our motto. We are a full logistics supply chain management academy where we teach digital industry 4.0 logistics and digital transformation for professionals. We are based on e-commerce, logistics, supply chain, business intelligence, project management, all those knowledge you need to have in order to succeed in a 4.0 industry, so we can reskill, upskill and reskill our profiles for professionals. And today this session will be held in English, so we can start mixing each other by start opening the content where we're going to launch English for business and English for logistics, 2 courses that we are thrilled to start working, because even based in Latin America, many of the companies that are hiring remote. I had the opportunity to work for one of them for almost 2 years, where I was 100% work for the US, but based in Latin America, in this case in Spain. So it's very, very important for us as professionals that we upscale our English level, and we understand the basis of what does it mean to work globally. You know, logistics is a global thing. We're going to see more in detail about that. So it's important for us to have it, and also for the Hublogistico as one of the corner store, along with project management and business intelligence. English for logistics and e-commerce is part of our value proposition. Okay. So without further ado, I will be welcoming Mario, so you can introduce yourself, and I'll be hosting the session and making more people going in as they come in. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm glad that we are gonna do English, because si hablamos en español, nadie me va a entender.
Awesome.
And I got one question for you. ¿Por qué usas eres en tu t-shirt? ¿Sos argentino?
Argentino, yes. I try to hide that whenever I talk in Spanish. I try to always not, but they always figure it out, right? So I'm just not good at it.
Oh no, you should wear it with pride. But thanks again for having me on and doing this special edition session in English. I'm Mario Paganini. I am the Vice President of Marketing at Stored. You can see some of our website and our logo on the screen there. We're a supply chain and logistics company based out of Atlanta, Georgia, here in the United States. And we certainly operate somewhat similarly to what Christian would call a 3PL, but I think our approach is quite a bit different than what you would find from your traditional 3PL. There's many of them, and they come in all shapes and sizes, but in most cases, your traditional 3PL, what they really excel at is delivering a specific physical logistics service, most commonly warehousing, and then fulfillment, whether that fulfillment be sending pallets into other distribution centers or into retail stores, or shipping out parcel boxes to end consumers. But really your traditional 3PL, that's really all they're going to be able to do for you. So if you have all of your other operations lined up, if you give that 3PL all of the right instructions, and their piece of the puzzle is merely to execute that storage and shipping, and then the rest of your supply chain equation is perfectly figured out, awesome for everyone. But where Stored comes in is that we really believe that the problem that most omni-channel and direct-to-consumer companies are facing is not that they don't have the ability to store products or ship products. There isn't a commerce company anywhere in the world that doesn't have some mechanism of storing their product and shipping their product. So if everyone has access to these services, why do so many brands struggle to optimize their logistics, optimize their supply chain? And my answer to that is that most brands struggle in connecting their end-to-end supply chain experience. So your supply chain is literally what connects your brand to your customers, and that permeates out across everything from manufacturing to import transportation, drayage, freight, warehousing, fulfillment, both retail distribution and parcel. And most brands are using different systems and different 3PLs for each piece of that equation. And when you have all of that variability, when you have 5, 7, 10 plus different partners that you're reliant on throughout your supply chain, you are exposed to a lot of variability and a lot of risk. If everything goes perfect, then it all works out. But as soon as there's one problem anywhere within that equation, that has massive downstream effects on your customer experience, on your entire supply chain. So really the problem that we are solving at Stored is less of a we ship your products for you problem, and more of a we come in with our technology and connect that entire experience so that from one piece of software, you have insight and visibility into what's going on throughout your supply chain, all the way from manufacturing through to the product being in the hands of your end customer. So that is what we do from a technological perspective. And then we supplement that with our own logistics services, and we provide everything that we call port-to-porch logistics. Today, we don't do any freight forwarding, ocean or air freight, but everything from the point in time that product arrives at one of the ports within North America through to the point that that product is in the hands of an end customer, that's all serviced by Stored. So we have a freight business with access to over 30,000 trucking carriers. We have a warehouse network of over 1,000 warehouses, all connected through our technology and serviced by the Stored team, and the ability to provide fulfillment services for B2B, direct to consumer, or a combination of both. So that's the maybe not so short overview of Stored.
Awesome. Very, very good. Very enlightening. I understand very much of the context of it. I would like to understand also how does the supply chain constraints and the bottleneck we are seeing in the US is affecting your customer performance, and if they found your visibility, your supply chain solution, end-to-end visibility, useful in this case of uncertainty they have, whether it's for shipping goods, receiving, and end-to-end supply chain, really.
Yeah, so and obviously the supply chain issues that have been going on over the last couple of years are very complex, and there's a lot of different things that might be happening for any one business. But when I think about them, I kind of put them into two buckets. There's two high-level problems that lead to brands having these supply chain issues, or us as consumers wanting to be able to go purchase a product and not being able to find that product on the shelves of a store or available through an e-commerce website. And problem one is what we call a demand planning problem. I don't know if that's a common term, and I honestly don't know what the Spanish term would be for it, but essentially demand planning is the process through which you as a brand try to understand, okay, based on the sales that I have today, how much product am I going to need to produce now so that I can have sufficient product for the upcoming season for next year? And so what has happened to a lot of brands is that with the fluctuation of demand throughout the pandemic, it's been very difficult for them to accurately forecast that demand. And what ends up happening is that if you get that calculus wrong, if you underestimate how much product you're going to need, by the time you realize, by the time you're actually feeling the pain of that, where you have high demand for a specific product or set of products, and that's now out of stock, at that point in time, if you don't realize that you have that problem until that product is out of stock, you are now on a likely several month, if not multi-quarter cycle to get more of that product produced. And so the better that brands, kind of like your t-shirt says, Christian, the better that brands are able to leverage both their own historical data, but also generally available market data to properly anticipate and predict not just their demand today, but their demand for the future. That's going to be the number one thing that's going to alleviate a lot of these problems, because no matter how good your 3PL is, or no matter how great you are at shipping, or how awesome your supply chain technology is, if you don't have any product, there is no solution out there, not stored, not anyone else, that can, magically produce more product. If you say today, hey, I need more product for next month, there aren't very, very many, if any, valid mechanisms to do that. So making sure that you have the right data, that you've deployed enough time and effort, as well as brought in any sort of market data and external sources to make sure that you are accurately forecasting your demand, is a huge piece. So that's kind of bucket one of, generally speaking, some form of demand forecasting is causing a large percentage of all of the supply chain issues that we're seeing. And then bucket two is something that, is experienced by a lot of brands, but I actually think is easier to solve, and something that a partner like Stored can solve for you in a shorter period of time. And that second bucket is inefficiencies, delays, or problems within your logistics network. So you might have that product, you have it within your network, but due to either poor data, failures of logistics providers, lack of warehouse capacity, lack of shipping capacity, you are not capable of getting that product where it needs to be, when it needs to be there, or you have improperly allocated your product. So if you're trying to reach the majority of North America, and you know that most of your customers are going to want to get that product within 1 or 2 days, but you have all of your product in Southern California or Western Nevada because it came in through the port of Long Beach or the port of Los Angeles, that's going to be great for people in that region. But when you're trying to reach someone in the Northeast, when you're trying to reach someone in New York or Boston, you're going to end up either taking 4 or 5 plus days, or spending a significant amount of money to get that product moved that long distance in a reasonable period of time. So this is why it's so important that even if you have all the product you need, that you have an appropriate distribution strategy. And so if you look at your data, something that you can do through a platform like Stored, staying in line with Christian's t-shirt, and you understand, okay, this is the distribution of my customers. 50% of my sales volume is on the West Coast, 30% of my sales volume's in the Northeast, 5% of my sales is in the Midwest, and 15% of my sales are in the South. Once you know that, and assuming you have either the right facilities on your own or you're working with a partner like Stored, but there are many other people that are great at doing this as well, that have facilities all over the country. Once you know this data, you can work with that right partner to allocate that inventory every time you get new containers of stock coming in through the port. You can have that inventory allocated at the proper percentage across all of North America, so that all of a sudden now, when you actually need to ship that product out on its final mile or last mile journey, you can do so. You can get it there in under 2 days, and you can pay significantly less. The amount it costs to do a economy ground shipment might be $5, whereas if you need to do the same speed but covering a much greater distance, you might end up paying $15 or $20. And so if you can get your product closest to your customers before that final mile, not only are you going to avoid many of these kind of shortcomings, you're also going to end up saving a lot of money and delivering a better customer experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I understand. Very complete. Also, I agree a lot. So first thing that come to my mind is when you talk about that type of cost and that difference between going all ground by trucks end to end in the U.S. region, either zone 1 or 2 or 3. But how does that impact into your customers? I want to understand what is a typical customer for Stored. If you're working with DTC, I know their margins are very low. For anyone doesn't know in the term, DTC are direct to consumer vertical e-commerces that are selling their own products developed by themselves and trying to put together a compelling and comprehensive brand where they can tell a story. There is vitamins, clothes, wearables, electronics. And many of these brands has increasingly rapidly grow towards the US boom after the COVID situation. And I found many of them, because I know some of them, the cost structure is very sensitive. So they cannot afford to pay $10 extra for an overnight shipment. So I want to understand what type of customers do you have and if they value that part of a value proposition from Store on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's extremely important for anyone who aspires to start a direct-to-consumer brand or wants to move into the DTC direct-to-consumer space is to really focus on that margin profile. If you don't have an understanding of what your costs and what your margins are before you start operating, it's going to be extremely tough to get 3-4 steps down the road and then try to figure that out later. And so what I mean by that is, let's say that I sell t-shirts. Here's a shirt that I bought from Stussy, and I bought it from their website. They shipped it to me directly. And so if I'm Stussy, before I set up my store, before I start producing my products, what I'm going to want to do is look and say, okay, it costs me X dollars to produce a shirt. It costs me Y dollars to get that shirt into my market. So if my market's the United States, it's going to cost me to ship that from my manufacturer, assuming my manufacturer is overseas, likely in Asia, where it's going to be admittedly much cheaper to produce those products than producing them in North America. And then I'm going to say, okay, how much is it going to cost me to sell that shirt? I probably am going to need to devote some amount of money to sales and and marketing in order to get my brand out there and sell my t-shirts. And then, okay, then on top of that, it's going to cost me something on a per shipment basis, per order basis, to actually ship that product from my warehouse or a partner warehouse I'm using to that end customer. And so when you add up all those costs, you come to essentially a cost of goods sold number. And if that number is, for example, $25, that is a really strong indicator of, okay, if I'm selling obviously if I'm selling the t-shirt for $25, that's going to be very bad for business. And so ultimately you're going to need to understand that equation. And I think that in most cases, many direct to consumer brands are working off of a 10-15% margin. I think that if you dig any deeper into your margin than that, it's going to be really, really tough. And so, before you start actually going through all these motions, it's really important to make sure that you are confident that at the end of the day, when you add up all of your costs, that at a minimum, you're seeing, a 15 or so percent profit that's sitting in your pocket after you've accounted for all the manufacturing, all the shipping, all the fulfillment, all the marketing and sales expenses. And so that's kind of the background. But to answer your question specifically, this is a huge reason why it's so important for these brands to be able to reduce their costs when it comes to last mile shipping. Like you said, that if you are using, let's just say in a very generic level, there's kind of 3 to 4 different tiers of package shipping. There's economy, which is the kind of lowest and cheapest level. The good thing about it is that it's very inexpensive. It can be, $5 or less. But the problem is that any of the carriers that offer this type of a service, they all have a different name for it, but they won't give you a guarantee. They'll say like, oh, it'll get there in 1 to 7 days. So you're kind of left to, luck of whether that package is going to get there in 1 day, 2 days, or 7 days. Then there's kind of one level up, which is your traditional ground, which in most cases, a carrier will give you a guaranteed delivery date. Then there's air, which can be in most cases at a minimum 2 to 3 days. And then you can have overnight. And if you look at that spectrum, all the way from the cheapest economy option up through next day air, you might be talking about $5 up to $20. And we're talking about shipping a t-shirt. If you're selling something much bigger, it's going to be even more expensive. And so if you have the right logistics network and the right third-party logistics partner or partners, what you're going to be able to do is move your product in bulk. So truckloads of product, you can move that and then store product in all of the right regions. And so for ideally all of your orders, but at a minimum, the vast majority of your orders, you can get those orders to your customers in 1 or 2 days and only pay for that economy level or that ground level of shipping. Because if you have to pay for the $15, $20 shipping, that might eat away all of your margin. And all of a sudden you've lost money by selling a t-shirt, whatever you're selling. And I think one of the major value adds of working with a really good third-party logistics provider like Stored or many others that are here in North America is that the shipping carriers, UPS, FedEx, the United States Postal Service, they won't give you a guarantee. They might say, this package will get there in 1 to 7 days. But if you're working with someone like Stored, who processes literally tens of thousands of these every single day, we have our own proprietary data set. So we can say, all right, we know based on historical data that we think there's a 99% chance that even though UPS is saying it's going to arrive in 1 to 7 days, that for this specific shipment, we've done it so many times, and 99.9% of the time, it comes in 1 or 2 days, that we can do that on behalf of our customers, on behalf of the direct-to-consumer brands. And so they're paying the absolute cheapest rate, but they're still getting that package to their customer in 1 to 2 days, because in most cases, you know, we've all become so accustomed, especially here in North America, to Amazon Prime, where you can order, you know, virtually anything on the face of the earth and it comes in 1 or 2 days. So if you're an independent direct-to-consumer brand, you need to be able to keep up with that, or you're likely going to start losing your sales to these much bigger players like Amazon.
Good. Awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, trying to put together all the information you said. Like, if I'm the one in charge of, first thing that comes to my mind is that for marketing, they pay a lot of attention for the customer acquisition costs and for the advertising spending and so forth. But logistics typically doesn't get that much of attention up until you get to the point that you need to deliver, and the cost structure goes way above what you thought, right? Way above the forecasted line. So what I'm thinking is, if I'm in charge of a DTC business or any retail business that I'm pulling together, and if I need to put together the information where my truckloads, where my production and my manufacturing from Asia is coming, where my containers are in the Long Beach, California port or Savannah port, where are those truckloads? Where do I keep the allocation for those goods? It will be like just too much complexity to handle. And I noticed you mentioned your proprietary technology, and I noticed on your webpage that you're now open it to public, so people can leverage from your technology for taking that kind of a decision and increase visibility to make better decisions. What about that? Is the solution from store opening their technology towards end customers?
Yeah, so historically, we have, so Stored is kind of unique in that we have our own proprietary technology product and we have our logistics products. And originally, we really built that technology to accompany our logistics. So if you're a Stored customer and Stored is doing your transportation, your warehousing, your retail distribution, your direct-to-consumer shipping, you also get Stored's technology, which is going to give you insight and visibility into everything that's happening in that experience. And what we started to see is that we would have a lot of customers that were using our technology who might be doing some of their own logistics, or they might have another partner helping them out in addition to Stored, and they really wanted to have that same level of insight, that same level of visibility that they get through Stored across all these other areas across their supply chain. So more recently, what we've done is we've made our technology accessible to brands, even if they're not using Stored as a 3PL, using any of Stored's logistics products. So regardless of if you're a brand, even if you're using someone other than Stored for your trucking, someone other than Stored for your warehousing, someone other than Stored for your retail distribution and FBA prep, someone other than Stored for your parcel last mile fulfillment, you can still come in and use Stored's technology to integrate that entire experience and have that single source. So, you know, if you're the logistics manager, the chief supply chain officer, the CFO, maybe even the CEO of a direct-to-consumer brand, you're going to want to know what's going on across all these pieces, because like Christian said, it's extremely important for you to monitor this information, both for your customer experience and the financial health of your business. And you're not going to want to log into 7 different platforms. They all have different forms of data, different logins, different ways of presenting information. You're not going to want to log into 7 different platforms and then download the data and dump it all into Excel and then manipulate it so that you can actually see what's going on. You're going to want to log into one single platform and get all of the insight you need across all of your logistics. And so this year, Stored opened up our technology so that you can have that benefit of having end-to-end visibility on your supply chain, regardless of how you're running your logistics. So we have several customers now that don't do any physical logistics with Stored. They just use our technology to manage and gain insight into what's going on within their supply chains. And one of the things that I think is fairly special and unique about Stored compared to many other successful startup 3PL businesses, it's not uncommon for a third-party logistics business to have technology. In fact, most all modern 3PLs have technology, but the challenge is that technology only manages whatever that one 3PL is doing for you. So everything else in your supply chain, you've got to go figure out how to manage it some other way, whereas Stored's software is really agnostic to however you're running your logistics, whether you run it through Stored, whether you do it all on your own, whether you have several other partners, whether you have Stored and several other partners, it doesn't matter. You can still use that technology to gain that insight and visibility into what's going on in your supply chain.
Awesome. Good. That's an awesome value proposition. I think it's very, very valuable, and that's probably one of the reasons you're doing a great business there, and you're breaking some hits on that market. One thing that you mentioned is related to, at least we were talking about marketing and the cost of acquisition, and I'm started thinking, how can logistics can leverage the retention for brands? Because I noticed the customer cost of acquisition has increasingly because of the Facebook, the Meta, the iOS changes, and so forth. So I see a lot of marketing teams going crazy with the money spent on ads. And once they get a customer, if they get a low or poor experience on the logistics side, the customer will typically not buy again. Not only that, but we'd also recommend poorly in social media and so forth. So what are the aspects that you see as key retainers for retention and customer acquisition that the store provides to its customer, for instance?
Yeah. So it's, like you said, it's expensive and it's very difficult to acquire a new customer. Ads are expensive, but that's not even the biggest problem. The ad platforms, whether it be Meta, whether it be Google, whether it be YouTube, TikTok, the way that they allow you to advertise is constantly changing. The cost structure, the format, what targeting capabilities you have. And so, there's always going to be ways to acquire customers through paid ads, but what those ways are and how profitable they are going to vary. That, over the years, if you look at many brands and you talk to their marketing teams, there, periods of great success and periods of massive, headache when it comes to paid acquisition. And so ultimately, when you're a business, when you're the marketing person, that's actually what I personally do here at Store. In my eyes, kind of the golden ratio, the way that you want to look at understanding, is my paid marketing successful or not, is you're going to want to look at a ratio that I call CLV to CAC. So it's customer lifetime value against cost of acquisition. So essentially saying, how much after I acquire Christian as a customer, what do I think he is worth as a customer over his lifetime of engaging with my brand? And then I'm going to look at, okay, how much did I pay to acquire him as a user, as a customer. And obviously, if that ratio is below 1, it means you're literally losing money. If it's 1, it means you're, breaking even. But ideally, you want that to be several X. You want to be bringing in many dollars of lifetime value for every dollar that you spend on paid marketing. And so, since it is so challenging to acquire a customer, it's almost more important to optimize for making that CLV, that customer lifetime value, bigger and bigger, rather than worrying or trying to constantly manipulate the ad platforms to acquire more customers or reduce that cost of acquisition. Obviously, those are important, but no matter how good you are at Facebook ads or Instagram ads or TikTok ads, optimizing your ads is never going to be as valuable as having customers come back and purchase from you for the course of multiple years after you acquire them. That's going to be way more valuable to your brand than any optimization of your TikTok ads or your Instagram ads. And so, if I acquire a customer, I'm going to want them to come back and purchase from me many times. And in order to do that, there's several things you need to think about. Obviously, first and foremost, you want to have a great product. If no matter how great your logistics and your marketing are, if your customers don't like your product, it's going to be challenging. But in terms of what you can do from a logistics perspective, it's reaching the customer how they want to be reached. So being in front of them, offering your product, ideally through a direct-to-consumer channel. But if your customers are buying on other channels, marketplaces, retail stores, figuring out how you can get in front of them there, delivering a great customer experience. So, speed is very important. Obviously, being able to get a product to a customer quickly after they've placed an order is important, but I actually think it's even more important to be reliable. So if you market that you have 1-day shipping and your shipping takes 2 days, you might say, oh, 2 days is still pretty fast, but that's still a really bad customer experience, because if I'm the customer, I'm going to be waiting for that order to come the very next day. And if it doesn't come, I'm going to be upset. So it ultimately, what matters more than speed is being predictable. So if you tell your customer a product's going to come in 2 days, it needs to come in 2 days. If you don't have the ability to get a product to every customer in 2 days, don't tell them that. Say it's going to take 3 days. Say it's going to take 4 days. You're way better off giving your customer a longer delivery window, but actually coming through and delivering on the time you said you were going to deliver, than over promising and under delivering. So that's one big point. And to be able to even know with any consistency whether or not you're going to be able to deliver a product in a specified number of days, you're going to need a good logistics network and the right data of historical orders to be able to do that. That's one thing that a great 3PL can provide for you. And then I think the last thing I'll say is the importance of having a great returns experience is often overlooked, but is extremely valuable. I think that a lot of brands see returns as this big negative. It sucks. It's like, oh, someone doesn't want my product and I've got to refund them and I don't get their revenue. But it really should be seen more as a growth opportunity, because when someone wants to process a return with your business, there's two outcomes. You process the return for them and they never come back again, or you provide a great experience and that person doesn't do a return at all. They do a exchange. So they got the wrong size, they send it back and you send them the right size, and all of a sudden they're a happy customer. And so being able to provide a seamless return experience, having the right marketing, the right technology to encourage people to actually do an exchange instead of a return, all these things play a pretty massive difference in, again, whether you have a customer and you spent a bunch of ad money to acquire them and then they make one purchase, you never see them again, or, you know, I'll use Stussy again as the example, the t-shirt I've got on. I have like 10 of their t-shirts because this is the first one I bought. And I love the experience and love the shirt so much that every time I need a new shirt, they're the first place I look to get a shirt. And that's ultimately what you want. I see there's a question in the chat. Let me just read this quickly from Ariel. What do you think of the implementation of a technological surveillance system to improve the competitive intelligence of logistics companies? In countries like Argentina, we are very far from companies understanding this path. What do we mean? I honestly don't know what is meant by a surveillance system. Like, is that meant to be like me going and surveilling other logistics companies, or is that the brands having like the ability to actually see what's going on with their logistics partners?
You can open your mic, Ariel, if you would like. I understand the surveillance you mean by theft. You mean by theft? Because it's simply a complication we have in some countries is, you know, most of the parcels always get stolen. And that's even an issue for the US. I've seen videos of the Los Angeles train getting robbed, many parcels being hacked, you know. So companies are starting to invest on that one. It's not with a microphone, but I think it's that technological surveillance. I mean, to have more control on the parcel so we can track the status for that, right?
I think that's a piece of it, but I actually think that the implication is more about how do you use competitive intelligence to make your business better. And so, you know, I'll be transparent. You know, we're not doing anything illegal, and I wouldn't recommend anyone do anything illegal, but something that we do at Stored is there's a, you know, number of competitive logistics companies that are competing for the same customers that Stored is, and we absolutely are watching what they're doing. We subscribe to their newsletters, we read their websites, we look at the new products they release, and oftentimes if, you know, we see that there is a customer that's considering Stored versus considering some other logistics company, what we'll do at Stored, and this is totally legal, and I actually encourage people to do this to Stored, is we will go and we will order a bunch of products that are being shipped out by another logistics company, and we'll see how fast do they come, what communications do we get, how were they packaged, were they damaged, and we'll try to use all of this information. And if by chance it's a bad experience, we now know this, and that's something that we might be able to, you know, communicate back to the customer. Or if one of our competitors happens to be doing something really cool that we're not doing, it's good insight for us to, you know, consider doing the same thing. I think one of the sales tactics we use, if there's a company that we really want to acquire as a customer, oftentimes what we'll do is we'll order a bunch of their products and we will document the whole experience. What was the checkout experience like? What was the purchase confirmation email? What did they send us from a tracking perspective? How quickly did the package come? What was the packaging? What was the return experience? And then we'll look at that and say, okay, what of these elements could Stored do better than this company is doing right now? And then we'll call them or we'll email them or shoot them a LinkedIn message and outline like, hey, we love your products. We went through this whole experience. You guys have a great flow, but we think that there are a few areas that you could improve, which is going to result in better customer experience, more sales, greater retention. Here's specifically how. Because if your sales pitch is just, hey, let me do your shipping instead of those other people, you know, the brand's not going to care. But if your sales pitch is, hey, we know what you're doing right now, we're big fans, but we actually have a specific idea that could make your business better today, you're going to have a much better opportunity to engage with customers if you're a logistics company. That is.
I agree. That kind of business benchmarking and customer journey competitive benchmarking against other business, I think is pretty valuable. And also, you know, it's a piece of understanding for you what are they lacking on their services, because perhaps they're only shipping with one shipping provider, or they're spending, you know, that we know that in the market we know the rates, who's the expensive one, who's the, you know, so you can leverage from better rates if you work with us, or we have open rates with, I don't know, USPS, DHL, USPS, so forth. I think it's a pretty one to engage, and it's a good idea. Now that we were talking about, I want to highlight two things. The first one is you mentioned all the acquisition. We talk about marketing. You mentioned all the acquisition or advertising channels that a company can work with. You mentioned TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Meta, Google, whatever. Okay, so you have a bunch of them. Then there's some other channels regarding technology. Some of your customers might be working with SAP, NetSuite, Shopify stores, a bunch of other options. And so the store technology, it's able, you mentioned that you are agnostic and open towards that possibility with seamless integration. How does it work when a DTC wants to open with new sales channel? If they want to leverage from your API capacities and so forth, so they can sell at a retail store, or perhaps, you know, handle their goods on a particular marketplace. What is that as a part of a value proposition?
Yeah, so in our world, we kind of call these channels, and so you have your direct to consumer channels like Shopify or WooCommerce, Magento, all of the e-commerce platforms. Then you've got your marketplace channels, like this is more of an SMB channel, but like eBay or a Poshmark, or on the more enterprise side, a Amazon or a Walmart. And then you've got your trading partners or retail channels. So you as a brand, you're sending inventory, and that inventory is being bought by Target to put on their shelves, or Walmart to put on their shelves, or Best Buy, or Dick's Sporting Goods, or, you know, any number, Sephora for health and beauty, PacSun for clothing, you know, you name it. And essentially all of these different retailers and different channels have various specific data regulations and compliance configurations, as well as integration frameworks. And so one of the things that's quite challenging for a brand to do is, you know, if all your business is through a Shopify store, you know, realistically, you can probably manage, you know, most, if not all of that through Shopify and using their kind of native OMS or order management system. But as you start to expand and you sell on multiple online channels, multiple trading partners, and all of a sudden you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 plus of these different channels, it becomes really difficult to manage. And one of the benefits of working with a partner like Stored, or like there's certainly others out there, SKUBalt, Skubana, or a couple other ones that do this. Kirk.com, I believe, does this, is that these partners have pre-built integrations with all of these different channels. And so if you're a Stored customer and you're selling on Shopify today, and then all of a sudden you get a brand deal with Target or with Walmart, or you decide, hey, I want to start selling on Amazon, it is as easy as, okay, cool, let's turn that on right now, because Stored already has that pre-built integration with those channels. And so all of a sudden, whereas when you're only selling through Shopify, all of your orders were coming through Shopify. So you could log into Shopify and see your whole business. But now if you're selling Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, Target, and well, let's say Sephora. Now your orders are coming from 5, 6 different places, and you're going to need some sort of a centralized source where you can see all of that and have that data normalized in one place. And that's something that a partner like Stored can do for you on the digital side. And then on the physical side, when you move from direct to consumer into these established retail channels, it's super annoying, but every single retailer, like Target, has their own specifications for exactly how you need to send them product. Amazon FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, has very specific specifications of how you need to label your product, how you need to package your product, how you need to send them their product. Walmart, then unfortunately, they're all different. They all have their own ways of doing things. And what really stinks is that if you mess up and you mislabel your products or you pack them wrong, those retailers will actually charge you money. It's the technical term for it is a chargeback. And if you're a small business, we talked earlier about how important margin is, that if you're getting these, unexpected chargebacks from your retail partners, that can really eat into your margin. And so, working with a third-party logistics provider, a 3PL that has extensive experience working with these retail channels, that knows exactly how to support Target, exactly how to support Amazon, exactly how to support Walmart, is going to not only give you all of the data in an easy to use format from a tech perspective, but also ensure that your physical fulfillment to those providers is compliant and matches all of their rules and regulations so that you don't get these chargebacks.
Awesome. Yeah, chargeback sucks. Many of us,
Yes.
will agree with that. Now we've been talking quite a long time on the pains of the logistics part of a business, by putting together that. But I would like to highlight your store value proposition for a communication piece of a site. I've been working with logistics for so many years, and I've seen their advertisements and the way our customer acquisition there go on their virtues, on how good they're doing things, or how big their customers they are. But you're there with a bold statement, putting together some crazy advertising on really what's the backside of the thing, where logistics sucks, where trucks get piled up, where there's constraint in the ports, where there's increasing costs and lack of visibility. And you take it from a perspective that is kind of a meme between anime and meme and actors. And I also would like for you, since you're the VP of marketing, for us to explain how that value proposition from that marketing side come from selling store proposition.
Yeah, so I'm glad you appreciate our marketing. I always have a smile in the morning, and I see whatever we've posted for the day, that you're always one of the very first people to like it, and I really appreciate that. But early on, I think the very first question you asked me is about the stored value proposition, and I talked about how our approach is really unique, that there's a lot of people that are offering third-party logistics services. There's a lot of supply chain technologies, but the vast majority of them are just solving individual pieces, that there are very few, if any, providers that are really trying to make connecting that entire experience and optimizing your end-to-end supply chain, both digitally and physically, their value proposition. Stored is in my eyes really a pioneer and an innovator of a new category of solutions that we call cloud supply chain, similar to what Amazon Web Services did with cloud computing, and took something that was a really cumbersome, technically annoying, constant nagging challenge for tech companies, and made it a scalable utility that always works exactly when, where, and how brands need it. That's what Stored's doing with supply chain, with cloud supply chain. It really is as simple as, the vision is you integrate with Stored once and you get everything you need to manage your supply chain end to end. And because our approach is so unique and innovative, when we think about how we market ourselves, how we communicate our value proposition, how we present ourselves visually, the media that we use, in my mind, it's actually very clear that we will not succeed at being these innovators. We won't succeed at showing the world how different we are and how much more value we can provide to these brands if we present ourselves and talk about ourselves the same way that everyone else in the industry is talking about themselves. It's like, I see so many companies that have very average marketing, and they're too afraid to try something different or try something outside of the box. So instead they're like, oh, I see other people doing this stuff, so I'll do stuff like that. And if you want average results, if you want to be a middle of the pack company, that strategy might work. But if you want to be a breakaway success, if you want to be the top 1%, you don't get there by doing the same things that everyone else is doing. On the technology and logistics side, Stored is certainly not doing the same stuff that all of the other players are. And so from our sales and marketing and communication, in my eyes, there was really no option other than being as differentiated. And, in my opinion, I think that of all the industries out there, logistics has some of the most boring, most old school, most drab marketing. And so, we really have been working on, how do we stay true to the value of Stored, and how do we communicate our value, but do it in a way that's fun and engaging. And the thing that I push my team on is every time we publish something, it's, what about this is going to actually be entertaining, be fun for our audience. And so, the backdrop of the Zoom here is a screen grab of our website. So the Stored website has this whole animated supply chain world. This is just a still screenshot, but on the site, all of these trucks are moving so that we can show. It might be tough to load over the Zoom, but you can actually see everything moving around in live time, so that we actually are showing you what we mean by port-to-port logistics. And then across our social media and our advertising, we try to think of fun concepts and play off of media and stuff that people actually enjoy watching. So yeah, definitely been fun. And certainly I have a little bit of nervousness and anxiety about doing things that people have never done before. But at the end of the day, I know that if we don't do something different, we're not going to get the results that we want. So definitely been very fun over the last couple of years to build out Stored's marketing.
Awesome, good. Kudos on the good work, and glad you convinced the board to be a bold on that part of the communication side, because it's not always easier to convince a board on that matter. Well, thank you very much. We are averaging an hour of talk. I think we have discussed very good and very important topics on logistics, supply chain management, logistics, technology. We started the conversation by saying that, well, Hublogistico is an academy, and we bring digital technology for upscaling the profiles of the people working in this area. And as we develop our conversation with you, Mario, we have seen that you mentioned that companies are constantly sailing in new channels. So that will require some time of project management to put together the scope of the project of launching a new product, a new division, merger and acquisition, sell in a new online channel, or whatever we are planning to do next. Then you mentioned business intelligence by taking better decisions with reliable data. And that's the way you're engaging with your value proposition from Store, and opening the cloud web base from your products. And then for sure, we are speaking 100% in English, because many of the players, either in Europe or in Latin America, want to once they scale up their products, they want to sell in the US because it's the #1 market in the world on e-commerce. So they typically want to go there. So they need to manage their skill on English. And that's part of also a value proposition of Hublogistico, where we stand for project management, business intelligence, logistics for e-commerce, and English management. So we can have the full suite of comprehensive material, so we can upscale our profiles and work with the lever that is required for the brands that we are leading. Okay. So thank you very much for your time today. It's been a blast to talk with you. Hope we can repeat this one. I really want to visit you either in San Francisco or in Atlanta. I'd be glad to do that. If you have some time, we will go back to Lake Tahoe and have some ski days.
Yeah, sounds spectacular, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad, and yeah, I've very much enjoyed it, and yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, please do let me know when you're going to be in San Francisco or Atlanta.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one. Thank you very much for your time, Mario. See you soon.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.